What do you have going on there?
This is
That looks good.
tonic water with tropical fruit, frozen fruit that you buy in those little
Oh
bags.
yeah. Yeah, it's probably good for you.
Yeah, except for the sugar. Well, there's not too much sugar, I guess, in the tonic water. So we are live. I'm here with Lina.
Hi everybody. Thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it.
Lina looking good in the fresh air. It's must
How
be
have you
nice.
been since we last talked?
I've been well. Yeah, I'm on holidays now, so I can't complain. I'm on construction holidays. And
Oh, very nice.
so, yeah, I've been getting some stuff done off my task list, and I've got more things on my task list that need to get done. But I like being on holidays. I like not having to go to work. So I got 2 weeks
Have you
off.
spent time with the family?
No, my family situation's messed up,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
sadly.
that.
Yeah, yeah. You'll pray for me and mine with your own special prayers. And yeah, that's sad. But I'm not overly social. I think you have the same sort of thing. You like to be alone, and
Yeah.
so I'm happy. I've got my wife, and that's amazing. And just we love being, we give each other a lot of space. She likes to do her thing, and I like to do my thing. I'm on one end of the apartment. She's on the other end. In Montreal, we have apartments that are like bowling alleys. They're really narrow and long, and so
Okay.
we always make a point to get apartments that have the one office on one end and then a room on the other end, so that we could be far apart and do our own thing.
She's an introvert too, huh?
Yeah, she's kind of mixed like me. I'm mixed, but we're both leaning, I guess, toward introversion, and we both were kind of eccentric, weirdo loner children, and bullied at school and that sort of thing. And
I'm
so
sorry to hear that.
well, it's a good thing because we learned how to enjoy our own company and how to be creative, and it makes
All the
us.
silver linings, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I would not change it for the world for sure, because I can't imagine what a hellish nightmare it is to be locked into people pleasing and all that sort of thing. We all do it to a certain extent,
Yeah.
but there is that danger when when you're just conforming with everything and you're on that mainstream path. I think it's a bit of a danger to lose
I
yourself
I
and
think
stuff.
more likely though, not getting bullied is probably better overall, you would say, right?
Yeah, it wasn't excessive bullying. I mean, we're up here in Canada. It's probably there were no firearms involved or anything, you know. So,
Yeah. Yeah, Canadian
Canadian
bullying
bullying is
is
just where they say sorry twice instead of four times, you know. So,
yeah. Well, I can relate a bit. I mean, I definitely experienced, some of just the social bullying, maybe not so much physical, but
yeah,
um yeah, and I think it's a bigger problem too, just with today's age of the internet, age of the gig economy. Like people just don't have as much free time.
which kind
So
of economy is it?
our gig economy, well, maybe that's
Gig,
just the US.
gig.
We're like service economy.
Okay, it's all like contracts
They're
and
calling it a
hustling.
gig economy now because now you have all of these different part-time jobs, no benefits, no
Uh,
no nothing, and people have to work. It's basically just hustle culture. It's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I work a
a
crappy.
result of late stage capitalism, we could say.
I got a crappy job with zero benefits. I've never had well, I've had jobs with benefits, but I hated those jobs. So I prefer to have a crappy job
That's not this
with no
job, is it?
benefits. Yeah, the job I have now, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask
There
if
are
you
no
had a day
benefits.
job or not.
I do have a day job, but my day
Okay.
job is in construction, working in an office, and there are no benefits. But the only times I ever had benefits when I had a job in the past, it was crappy government jobs or really big business jobs. I hate that. I prefer to work for a small family company, which is sort of like what I'm in now. And you don't have the safety net and I don't have dental or anything like that, or
Yeah.
anything really medical or whatever. But I guess here in Canada we have medical
Oh, that's
card,
right.
we have our
Yeah.
medical card, and I just try to avoid going to the doctor and to the hospital as much as possible, just because, they're trying to help, but they can also hurt you when they're trying to help you. So just try to avoid interventions as much as possible. Not that I'm paranoid, but I did have a mess up on my wrist. I broke my wrist and they had to do 2 surgeries and they messed the first one up. That's why they had to do the second one. So they're trying to help, but it's complicated and it's just.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I thank you. I just, when I broke my wrist, I told myself it's not broken, it's not broken, it's not broken, it's not broken. And for 2 weeks I was telling myself that, but my arm was turning purple and green and all the way up to the elbow.
Oh yeah, it was broken.
And my wife's like, I think it's broken, you should go to the hospital. So finally I went. But
You probably made it worse by waiting so long.
the doctor said, no, it's good, it's good. He said it was good because he explained it to me why it was beneficial that I waited. I don't know why, but I can't remember the reason. But all of that to say, I'm a little bit hesitant to have medical interventions. And down in the States, it must be a nightmare with the financial cost because I have a relative who was visiting holidaying down there and had a very brief stay in the hospital, and it was something like it was tens of thousands of dollars. And
yeah, I've heard testimonies of ambulance drivers who say that they feel terrible picking up certain people because they know that they're just the ride alone is going to wreck them. So it's pretty messed up here, not going to lie.
Yeah. So how have you been? Are you on holidays, or I can't remember what your situation is?
No, I'm on unemployment. I have a shitty job at Nordstrom, and I was guaranteed, 2 weeks in advance scheduling, and I've got nothing on my schedule right now. So
what kind of store is that? Is that clothing?
Nordstrom, yeah, they're a retail clothing store.
Okay.
Somewhat like higher end luxury stuff, but
okay.
Yeah, so I'm just collecting unemployment and trying to find another job, but it's terrible out here.
Oh boy.
I don't have a car either, so it makes it harder.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, you said you have a bunch of roommates, right?
I do, yeah. One of my roommates works at Nordstrom.
Oh.
Actually, 3 of them do.
Wow.
One of them in like the actual sales, and then 2 others in like the shipping area. So, and I do like the fulfillment, so like picking orders. It's a horrible job, and
yeah.
We're all wage slaves here, so it's
yeah. I did that in England at a bookstore, WH Smith Book Warehouse. So you get the orders and you go fill the orders and you go down the aisles, and it's it's somewhat interesting because the people are all transient, just like they're just travelers or whatever that we're just passing through.
Just listen to my podcasts and whatnot while I work. Or
do you?
Mostly when I slack off.
Ah.
Yeah, I'll try and like find places to hide and
yeah. Little nooks and corners, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be praying for you that you find a good job. I don't know what you're looking for, but
I don't know, honestly. I mean, I'm kind of disillusioned with the whole working thing, but I want to do something that's meaningful with my life. I want to contribute to society. I don't see it as a society worth contributing to in any way. And I think any job I can get now is only going to put me further into debt and, continue to support a system that's corrupt.
Yeah.
I say that because, capitalism is inherently exploitative. Like the way that you make profit is off of the work of other people. So I think the whole system needs a revamp.
Yeah, what I think we need is subsidiarity, which means that power automatically flows down to the lowest possible conceivable practical level. So, the individual and the family and the neighborhood and the borough and the city. And
do you see that as flattening hierarchies?
It's
just
not
kind of broadly speaking.
It's not flattening because you can have higher levels, but they do less and less Like I have a libertarian friend, I'm not libertarian, but he says that the federal level should only be self-defense and, defense and a couple other highways and a couple other things like that. And I'm not into political philosophy at all, so I don't really have opinions, but, I think libertarianism is probably oversimplifying a lot of stuff. But
Yeah, I would
the
agree.
idea of having less power at the higher levels and giving more power to the lower levels, I really like that. And that's a Catholic idea too. So, I mean, I'm in no position to have an opinion about politics just because it's well beyond me. I just don't understand, don't care. But I know that I don't like the government controlling me or enslaving me. And it just seems like those who have power, they enjoy it and they rig the system so that it benefits them. They're not looking out for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't distinguish between government power or other kinds of power, right? I think that abuse of power in general is a problem.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about flattening hierarchies, that's kind of what I'm referring to, right? Is making the power a level playing field so that the little guy can't get stomped on.
Yeah.
And I don't see libertarianism as achieving that, because the problem with limiting government power is that that gives other power free reign, right? If you limit the government's power to, for instance, regulate corporations, corporate power is going to become the new
Yeah.
dominant force,
Yeah.
right? And we kind of already see that in
Yeah.
the U.S.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's an interesting balance between having rules and power structures that are basically implemented in order to protect against the accumulation of power. It's a bit paradoxical in that way, how you have to use the government to ultimately get rid of the need that the government, provides a solution for, right? Because ideally, right, at the end of like a socialist utopia scenario, we would have anarchism, right, where we would have no government power overseeing anything because it would all just be organized, right? We wouldn't have the sorts of inequalities and injustices that we have today. Mostly what I care about is personal freedom. And I think that's exactly what you were getting to when you were talking about, first the individual, then the family, then the community. I see that as the same way in which we should prioritize our values, right? Value the individual first and their rights, and then work outwards from there. But
yeah, well,
yeah, we don't have to get into politics.
Yeah, we
too
don't
much.
have to get into it, but there's a lot of psychology involved, and there's a lot of tribalism. And like if I were, for example, in an airplane and the airplane crashed on a desert island and we all survived, but we just have to live with each other until we get rescued, like for years and years and years. I would be stuck with a bunch of people that most likely disagree with me about everything, and that's just the way it is. And so I would end up compromising and going with the mainstream values and the sort of average Joe Blow attitudes, and I would just be compromising constantly, nonstop, And
Yeah.
I could deal with that. Like I'm used to compromising. I've been married 27 years. I know what it is to compromise. I'm very happy to compromise. But that's kind of what life is. It's like if you're part of the mainstream average way of seeing things, you're going to get your way most of the time in a democratic sort of setup where, and I'm assuming on this island that people would kind of want to listen to each other and take the majority vote on stuff like that's maybe a
That's the problem with the
big
island
assumption,
too, right?
big assumption.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can't compromise even on the island. Sometimes you can bend your morals, but everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah.
And then it gets violent. So
we could divide up
yeah,
the
obviously
island.
we want to protect democracy. We want to compromise more than we fight. We want to work together. I see it as more. I mean, I don't see the Republican Party, for instance, as like a group that we should be trying to compromise with, right? Because what happened with January 6th, I know you haven't been following the hearings, but I mean, as far as we can tell, Trump did try to throw a coup, right? This was, if they had thought it would have been more successful or could have been more successful, I think that they would have tried, right? And I think that they realized that it wasn't going to work, and so that's why Trump called it off, and that's why there's a lot of this backpedaling going on. But like, as far as I can tell, the Republican Party is a terrorist organization. I mean, they are as anti-democracy as it gets.
Yeah.
And you can't compromise within a democracy with anti-democratic forces. Like, you agree we can't compromise with like the Nazis, right?
Yeah, I do not trust the right any more than I trust the left, which is to say I don't trust them at all. I just don't trust them at all. I don't trust
Now, by the left, do you mean the left establishment, the Democrats?
I'm talking about those who
Okay.
have power, those who have power. Like, I mean, you're an individual, you're
Hmm.
probably identifying with the left, and that's fine, whatever. But if ever you were to rise to power, then you would necessarily, I think you would necessarily be corrupted by that power, and then we would go from our little friendship to like, yeah, it's just like that guy is now in the untouchable class of those who have power and have been corrupted by power. That's the way I see it. So I hope you're not aspiring
So,
to greatness in the political realm.
well, so yeah, I mean, I guess what hope do you have in democracy then? Because it sounds to me like, and this is the vibe that I get from a lot of Christians, is like, oh, well, humans are corrupt, humans are fallen, our political systems are never going to work, right? They're
Yeah,
always going to be flawed,
yeah.
and so we gotta put God in charge. And I have a lot of problems with that. Um, you know, not not only in that everyone has their own idea of what God wants, and that we have to hash out not what God wants, but what people who speak on God's behalf want. But the other problem is that it kind of goes against the whole free will concept, right? Like, if God's going to put us here as humans to go through this weird experience we're doing, right, as limited beings, it seems to me like the effort should be on us, and is on us, to well, as it says in Genesis, to go out and conquer the earth, right? So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just immediately assume that should look like a theocracy, but I think when you actually like get into asking what's the best system for here and now, because we are stuck on this earth for the time being, that, until Jesus comes back, we should have a democracy. That is the most appropriate way to balance power. Now, I don't know of any better way. I mean, democracy is not perfect, but like, did you have a better system
No, I
that's
don't have
not
it.
a theocracy?
I don't have any solutions whatsoever other than each individual trying to be nice, trying to be reasonable, you know,
Sure.
compromise, don't be an egomaniac, or at least if you're an egomaniac, try to sort of try to control that so you're not like trampling on people's feelings and on their dignity. And let's try to get along, and let's agree to disagree about all the things we disagree about, and if we can educate each other, let's do so diplomatically and in a friendly manner. Like, let's seek the truth, and we're not going to
Those
arrive
all
there
sound
too
like
quickly.
liberal ideals.
Yeah, yeah, for
That
sure,
all
for sure.
sounds like democracy, like Enlightenment values, like the
Yeah, yeah.
the the sort of thing, John Locke and then those guys.
Yeah, I
I think we're
disagree.
on the same page.
I disagree with some of John Locke, but there's a lot of good stuff there.
Sure,
And
sure.
I don't, like I said, I don't know enough about political philosophy to really take a position. I take the sort of position as an individual, like what would I want to do and what would I want done to me, and like how do you treat people? How do you treat people? Like, it's just basic. Like, you have to love and respect people even if you disagree. Sorry, you have to love and respect them, period. Now, can you make fun of them and that sort of thing? Like, yeah, I make fun of people, and I mean, I make fun of my wife, she makes fun of me, and we make fun of everybody. But, as long as it's good-hearted and it's light-hearted, good-natured fun, and if someone's extremely sensitive, you probably find out pretty quickly they don't like being the butt of your joke, and then you take that into consideration. Other people really like really digging hard with the criticisms as a form of bonding and whatever. Like, everyone's got their own way. The trick is to be sensitive, who is the individual in front of you, or who is the group in front of you, and like the group dynamic will be different from the one-on-one dynamic. So you and I could be at a barbecue, and it's like a completely different set of rules, and I'm just wondering, hey, why is Lena acting like that? When we speak one-on-one, Lena's like this, and then it's because there's a group dynamic, and like you have to adjust to that. So I may be a little bit autistic, like where I don't quite understand all the rules of the social stuff.
No, but it sounds to me like you're giving mind to the nuances involved, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. So like politics, the problem with politics and organized religion and, you know, commerce and business and everything else and journalism and everything else is that people let their own selfish ambition get in the way of the principles that should come naturally in a healthy family or in a healthy society with the principles.
I have an interesting hypothetical for you.
Sure.
So suppose you were drafted, right, and you go to war, and you find yourself alone on the battlefield, separated from your platoon or whatever, and then, you know, an enemy soldier runs over the hill, and you both spot each other, right, and you both raise your guns at each other, and you're standing in this standstill, and you can see each other, right? You're looking in his eyes, he's looking in your eyes, and you're both standing there. Neither of you have pulled the trigger yet. Do you lower your weapon or do you shoot him?
Well, I want to lower it. I would just like, this is like one-on-one. This is like we can easily justify this to our commanding officers, you know.
But the war is still going on around you. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Are you going to be able to, like, someone's going to have to be taken prisoner, or
I would probably,
something's going to have to go down.
I would probably not end up in that situation because I'm, you know, I adhere to the just war theory of the Catholic Church, and the rules are very strict, and trying to go grab someone's oil or their resources is not a just war. I'm sorry, it's just not a just war, period. It's just not.
If your country drafted you and you thought it wasn't a just war, you would
I would object.
Would you be willing to face the punishment of like imprisonment or whatever for
sure,
as like a form of protest?
For sure. For sure. I mean, I'm not I'm very skeptical of the motivations behind every war that I've seen. I've never seen a war in my lifetime where I thought, wow, this is so admirable and this is so great, I wish I could join in. I've never seen that. I've only been skeptical and said, well, who's profiting financially? You know what I mean? It's just like,
no, I think we're on the same page there too. Yeah,
we're on the same page with a lot of things. I really regret to inform you that I forgot last week that someone booked for 7 o'clock.
Am I
at 7 o'clock. You're not intruding, but we have half an hour to go. So maybe what we'll do is I can invite this guy in. I don't know him, but we could do a 3-way, and then you could say your goodbyes after that if you like that. Do you like that idea?
Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, but are there other more pressing issues that we need to go? I'm enjoying the political talk, but we could move on to if there are more pressing issues with the natural sciences, metaphysics, and all that sort of thing.
Right. I was thinking about like the axioms of science and getting into that again.
Yeah.
Because I think that I hadn't really fleshed out my view entirely. But who wanted to join? Do you know who it was, or
I could look it up. Some guy I met on Twitter.
Because I might know who it is.
You might what? You might know?
I said I might know. I don't know if it's like one of the common people that are around like the counter apologetics circles.
Okay. Let me check. How can I open my window here?
Although you have some pretty interesting guests on. I mean, you have like quite a mix of people you've had on. I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah. Ragtag crew, all kinds of people. Yeah, so I can find out on my Twitter here. I'll go to my Twitter and see. I've been meeting people on Twitter, and I have to be honest, I invite just about everyone, and there's so few people that want to come on, and that's why I appreciate you, Lina. One of the reasons is because you're open, friendly, you're willing to talk, and you don't agree with some of the stuff that I believe, but that's fine. You are willing to talk.
Adamantly disagree, you could say, but that's the good stuff, right?
You can still be civil with me, which is nice. So this guy is Brett Mitchell, and he just got back from Tanzania, where he married his Tanzanian woman. So how did I meet him? I reached
I
out
don't
to
know
him.
if the name rings a bell or not, but
Probably not.
not right now.
I think he's a regular little guy like me, 39 followers on Twitter. So he's just a cute little guy. I reach out to people just if I see something interesting on their Twitter, you know.
Yeah, very cool.
So yeah, I'll send him the link for this very same thing, and we could do a little three-way chat before we wrap up. Was there anything I said? Did you listen to the entire Tom Jump thing?
I didn't get a chance to. No, I've got it in my watch later
Is that the
playlists.
one? Is that the one that triggered you to say, "Hey, we should talk about the metaphysics of science"? Was that the video?
I mean, I stopped by briefly, and I was mostly arguing about abortion, but um, no, I mean that's just what I'm interested in.
Oh, that was
But I remember
Human.
I
That
saw.
was Human Davudi. Human Davudi. You were chatting in the live chat, right? Human.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no, I think
Human.
I might have just missed T jumps entirely then.
Okay, because we did talk
Yeah.
about science. We did talk about natural science and metaphysics and these sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, he was on Rebecca's stream, I think, like right before you.
Yeah.
Which I caught that one, and it was good. Yeah, I mean, obviously I disagree with him on politics, but when it comes to like the evidentiary, the epistemology behind religious claims and where he comes from, I think we're pretty much in agreement.
Okay.
So,
You've seen a lot of his content?
did you two get it? No, I mean, so I got into like the atheist YouTube community through the AXP, the Atheist
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was like some small YouTube channel called like the Agatha Foundation or something that had like highlight clips of different speakers. So I remember seeing, a lot of Matt, a lot of Hitchens, some other guys. And so I think I saw T Jump there first. And then it was a while before I saw him again on Modern Day Debate. And so he did a few things there. I think I saw his one on capitalism, which I was just that's where I like first started, disagreeing with him and looking into his views and stuff. But no, I mean, I think he's an awesome addition to the atheist community. I think he's a good speaker. He's smart. What did you think of him?
I've always liked him just because he's quirky, and he gave me a bit nastier vibes this time. I've spoken with him 3 times, twice in
Oh, okay.
2019, and then once just recently. And he gave me harsher vibes. He wasn't as friendly this time. He was like giving me dirty looks all through the whole interview. But that's fine, whatever. I mean, I did wake him up. Like he was literally waking up, like rubbing sleep from his eyes when we started the
Mm.
stream. So whatever. And I just found out recently that he's diagnosed with autism, so he's got some issues with communication and social stuff, right? Which I forgive very easily. Did you catch my AXP or whatever it is with the
I
two
did.
guys?
Yeah, I actually love that one.
Yeah,
We could talk about it if you want.
sure. Yeah, they were interesting. I had no idea. I was expecting Matt. I didn't know he was on holidays. But yeah, it was a weird vibe. It was really friendly and not as aggressive as Matt Dillahunty was with me. But yeah, it was strange. It was a little bit strange. What did you think of it?
Well, I thought he got a little bit like, I don't know if it was triggered or just kind of like
Which guy?
Marty, I guess. I don't know. He just pushed back on you talking over him a bit, which I think was just, I don't know if that was necessarily like you trying to step over them, and it was just kind of maybe the audio connection or something. But I mean, I don't know. It was weird. They granted, for the sake of argument, right, that the first cause,
Yeah, that was weird.
and then they were kind of like, okay, now what?
Well, they kept saying, "Oh,
Um,
we're retarded. We don't know anything, and we don't know." And explain like we're 5 years old or whatever. I just found that a little bit odd, and we don't know about philosophy and whatever, and trying to take some kind of
Well, to be fair, I mean, the five ways has been thoroughly discussed on that show. So, I mean, I haven't heard either of those hosts, which I think they're both like fairly newer to the show.
yeah.
I haven't heard either of them discuss like why they don't accept the five ways and their problems with it. But like, yeah, the way that they kind of just casually threw it all into like the same just first cause argument and then dismissed it, or they didn't even dismiss it. They were just, like, okay, fine, we'll accept it and then show us how that gets to Yahweh, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't think that you were successful in that, but like, I kind of wish that they had gotten into like the first cause stuff, but
Yeah. But I just appreciated at the end when what's the guy there, the prophet,
well, the long hair guy or the short hair
the
guy?
prophet guy, the short haired guy. He calls
Okay,
himself something prophet or whatever.
The apostate prophet?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I think so. But he gave me a nice sort of like thank you, and he said some complimentary words to me. I forget what it was, but I was surprised. And little
He's one of
things
the
like
more
that.
courteous hosts on there.
Yeah, I appreciate little things like that. Like I just appreciate that, like the humanity. It's like it doesn't take a lot of effort, but it just shows the character. And even though we probably disagree on 99% of things, it doesn't matter. Like I just look for that. I look for that. That's what I look for. I look for the humanity in my interlocutor. And if I get that, I'm just melting. I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. I don't care about the disagreements and the things we're arguing about. It's like, who cares? That's just my hobby, thinking about ideas. It's like day to day, if we're on the front lines together in some war, I'll have his back, he'll have my back, hopefully. And, it's that humanity, it's the bond of humanity. That's way more important than any stupid position on any theoretical question.
And that's the struggle, I think, with coming from, well, this isn't for all atheists, but a lot of atheists were religious at first.
Yeah.
And so the deconversion process, I mean, I can just speak for myself in saying that my religious upbringing was traumatic and that I had a lot of resentment and anger over basically feeling like I had the wool pulled over my eyes my entire childhood,
Yeah.
And this, the sorts of claims about eternal damnation and all these aspects of Christianity that I see as really toxic and really, authoritarian in nature. That can upset people, and that it can be hard to get over that emotional aspect of it. I still think that they're coming from a correct place, right? And it's justified anger. But when we want to engage in conversations with theists, it's not productive, and so that's definitely an aspect of my life that I've had to mature a lot with, is having these conversations and being able to engage with fascists and have a civil conversation and explain to them without getting all triggered, why forced birth, for instance, is fascism, and then it's hard, especially when it's topics relating to really important aspects of people's lives. But yeah, I definitely think atheists need to, in general, work on their optics. I remember Matt Dillahunty responding to, basically defending his attitude and his approach to it. And he was basically like, look, it works. I've got thousands of emails from people saying, thank you so much. You changed my life. You helped me to see the light of reason and let go of my delusions and whatnot. And I think that's all good. It's just, can he do the same thing without being an ass? And I think you can, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to flame him because he is one of the best, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would make a distinction again, like we did with the politics versus an individual. When you're an entertainer, and that's what he is, when you're an entertainer, and you've got a public show, and
he goes for the dunks instead of the compassion sometimes.
It's just the way it is, and like you can have your tricks and your persona and all those sorts of things, and more power to you, whatever, right? But
are you a fan of Digital Gnosis?
Yeah, I really like him, but he hates me. He hates me. I really want to talk to him again.
I don't think he likes me either.
Why?
Well, we got into this discussion about Well, it was basically Bread of Life. Rebecca
Yeah.
was, skeptical about uh, morality coming, morality being natural, right? That's a product of the natural world, and that, well, essentially her claim was it's impossible that morality is natural, therefore it's supernatural, right? Which is already fallacious. But I was like, fine, I'll bite. Let me see if I can present to you at least a plausible natural explanation for morality, right? Um, which is not good to do against philosophers of ethics and people who really looked into this, because it's really hard to draw like a clean connection between our biology and our psychology. It gets so much more complicated. A lot of the sorts of explanations that people give end up sounding like, and I think it's called evo psych bullshit. These kind of just explaining broad characteristics of human behavior with evolution just doesn't always work. And so, and I admit I was definitely like not presenting 100% proof that like this is how consciousness developed, but I think I successfully presented a possible case for naturalist origins. But yeah, he thought I was just kind of droning on high-minded evo psych conspiracy theories or something. Why does he not like you?
Because I debunked his 500 arguments against Christianity, and then
When was that?
was
Was that a while ago?
months ago, a couple months
Okay.
ago, and he took exception to that. He was very pissy about it, like, and you know, I don't know. It's just like I like him. I like his face. I like how he speaks. I like everything about him. But I aggravate him just the way I look and the way I speak and everything. So it's just like we're completely not. It's
I
not,
like
not
the
gonna
way
work.
that he, philosophizes. I think that he has a very sharp mind. I think that he is able to get to the heart of the different arguments being presented, and more importantly, show a lot of the rational incoherence and inconsistencies in a lot of the worldviews. Um,
I interviewed him when he was Christian, right? Do you know?
I know. How did that go?
It was nice. I mean, he was Protestant, so obviously I disagreed with a lot of his positions, but I mean, he was just a soft, gentle Christian, and he was, in many ways still questioning and seeking and vulnerable, very vulnerable and very emotional. And I appreciate that, And so unfortunately, he went to the dark side, what I would say the dark side, what you would say the light side.
He's still searching.
Yeah, I don't know where he stands now, but yeah, if I
I
could,
think he says he's agnostic. So
it reminds me of a good friend of mine that I recently reconnected with very tentatively because some years ago, this is probably 6 years ago, on Facebook, there was an app that will say, hey, what do you look like as the opposite sex or gender or whatever. So I used the app and I looked like a beautiful woman. It was amazing. And so I posted that, and he's like, that's not funny. You shouldn't make fun of trans people and whatever. And I'm just like, get over yourself, buddy. Whatever. It's an app. Everyone's doing it. Why are you giving me a hard time? Anyway, he unfriended me.
send me a link to that app. I want to check it out.
I'm no longer I haven't been on Facebook for years, so I don't know how I'd find it, but
Do you know what the app was called? I'll look it up.
yeah,
I'll look
look
it
it
up.
up. Look it up. I'm sure you'll find a million of these apps. But anyway, he got overly sensitive. He unfriended me and he wouldn't respond to my calls, and like we were pretty close friends. And so recently he accidentally, like, he joined Telegram, and I got a notification because he's in my contact list on my email, and I don't know, Big Brother's watching everything and trying to connect people. So he's like, he was kind of surprised that I reached out to him. on Telegram, but he begrudgingly said, "Well, look, I don't agree with your religion. I don't agree with you. You're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, you're this, you're that, you're a bigot, you're a fascist, you're all these things."
Yeah,
And I just, I
he's
just
not wrong.
accepted all these insults, like whatever. Like, I mean, you don't know my heart.
Well, I wouldn't see those as insult. I mean, unless he was being insulting with them, right?
Well, he's
Was
wrong.
he
He's wrong.
being?
He's wrong. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not a transphobe. I'm not
I
a,
think you are.
well, you're wrong. You're wrong.
You
You're wrong.
want to get into that, or?
Yeah, we could try. We could try. I sent a link to my friend, so he may join at any time. But yeah, get into it.
Okay, cool. That's fine. We can drop it at any time. But I mean, yeah, I definitely think from the different positions that I've heard you say, at least. I mean, to be clear, like when we say homophobia, we're not talking about a phobia. We're talking about a distaste or disdain. Frankly, just seeing homosexuality as a sin, I would say, is inherently homophobic.
Okay, so it's the word has been co-opted and divorced from the phobia.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever meant like an actual fear of like in the same way as arachnophobia. I think when that term first got applied to it, the thinking was like, oh, there's some sort of like underlying stigma or like societal fear that causes the sorts of hatred and like disdain
Yeah, but I don't
and
hate.
stigma that we
I don't
see.
hate any human. That's my point.
No, and I wouldn't charge you with hatred per se, but like, so again, like, do you see homosexuality as a sin?
Of course.
Yeah, so like, that alone I would call homophobia,
Okay, so
right?
I think adultery is a sin. I think masturbation's a sin. What am I? Like, am I just a complete bigot? Because everyone's masturbating and most people are fornicating and committing adultery.
Well, so those
And
aren't protected classes, right? So like homophobia, we consider to be an intrinsic part of yourself, right? Now, I also don't think masturbating is wrong, right? And so maybe you're just sexually
but you're
regressive
not
in
angry.
general.
You're not angry with me that I think it's
I'm
wrong.
not angry that you think that's wrong in the same way because it doesn't demonize and stigmatize in the same way, right? When you say that being homosexual is wrong in the same way that murder or rape or theft, right? All these other sins, when you lump it in, it you're basically saying these people are bad, right? Or at least that's how
No,
it comes across.
no.
Because you separate the person from the action
Yeah.
or like the desire, the sexual orientation, which
Having the
I don't see
desire
any
is not having the
justification for.
desire. There's not a sin to have homosexual inclinations, desires, and all that.
Oh, that's
It's not a
different.
sin.
Okay.
It's not a sin.
It's just-
It's only your free choice to do what you know is wrong. And if you don't know it's wrong, it can't be a mortal sin. It cannot be a mortal sin. If you don't know it's wrong, if you
do
don't
you
know that
think?
it's wrong, if you don't know that it's wrong, listen to me carefully. If you don't know that
No,
it's
I heard.
wrong,
I
you
heard.
cannot be committing
Do
mortal
gay
sin.
people think it's wrong in your like? Do you think most gay
God only
people think
knows.
they're doing it wrong?
God only knows the hurt. Only God knows the hurt.
I would argue most gay people who aren't in the closet or like otherwise religious, I think most of them want to be proud of who they are, right? They don't see it as like an affliction or like a curse. And more importantly, they don't see any of the homosexual actions that you would condemn as bad, right? Like I see murdering. Oh,
Mm.
sorry about that. Did you hear that? The motorcycle went past.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see homosexual acts as bad in the same way that murder is bad. And I don't see any justification why you would, other than because God says so.
One moment. Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Mhm.
1 moment, please.
Is he here?
No, he's canceling.
No. Tell him if he wants to join in. I can hop off
No, he
and
has
they can.
company. He has company. So this works out
Okay.
nicely. This works out nicely.
All right.
Yeah. So repeat what you just said about it's not a sin to I forget what you said.
Well, I mean, so what about it is wrong, right? Like murder is wrong in my mind because you're hurting someone, you're killing someone,
Yeah.
right? And that's just bad in
Before
a number of different
yeah,
ways that we
before
could.
before we talk about that, I want to go back to what you said about like, masturbation. It's okay to be against masturbation because it's not a protected class of people. Well, in my
Well, it's not okay. It's just not. It's not homophobic.
yeah. Okay, I want you to understand the hierarchy in my mind of all the sexual sins, okay? You need to understand this to properly critique me,
Fair
okay?
enough.
They're the only people having sex are people who are married and that are open to life and that are giving either in a committed relationship, lifelong relationship, one man, one woman, not closely related, and they're open to
For the
creating
purpose of
life.
reproduction, right?
Open to reproduction. It's not only for the purpose of reproduction. It's also a mutual self-giving and an act of love, okay? So
Okay. Okay.
those are the only people on planet Earth having sex or who have ever had sex or who will ever have sex. Everything else is a
Like
form
rape in your eyes.
everything else is a form of masturbation. So rape is a form of masturbation, incest is a form of masturbation,
Okay, that's
gay sex is
stretching
a
that
form of
term.
masturbation, bestiality is a form of masturbation. So at the top of my hierarchy of sexual perversions, the umbrella under which everything falls is the broad term masturbation. Okay?
Well, but you see masturbation as like self-rape, right? Like you're mutilating yourself and
Self-abuse, yeah.
self-abuse. Yeah. So I mean, it's
And you could do it in a group. You could
you
do
could call it
group
all masturbation, but
circle jerking.
let's just call it all inappropriate sex, like the misuse of sex.
Abuse of sex.
Right.
Yeah, abuse. That's what the word
So
masturbation meant in the
so
original Greek. It was
yeah.
abuse. Abuse.
So why do you believe that other than because that's what you think God says?
Because of the nature of the human, the nature of the woman, the nature of the man, the nature of the goat that you're trying to have sex with, whatever. Like there's a nature. Everything has a nature. And
Okay.
so that's what it's all about. So we've discussed this before. You and I have discussed this before. The nature, everything. A screwdriver has a nature. A screw has a nature. A nail has a nature. A hammer has a nature. And you have to pick the right tool for the job. That's it. Period.
And I'm fine with that. So, but I mean, so you're saying it's unnatural.
Yeah, goes against
Why?
nature.
Well, what makes you? Why do you have your particular understanding of what is and isn't natural?
Well, just look at reality. Look at the fact that every homosexual has a mother and a father, a biological mother and a biological father. Okay? Look at that fact, and then look at the zygote and look at how the zygote came to be. It was a male sperm and a female egg that came together, right? So it's just biology, it's basic biology. And how did the sperm and the egg get together? Well, it was the guy's part with the woman's part and they fit together. So it's self-evident if we look at nature. It's like the tribesmen in Africa when they were asked what is a woman, they said a woman is the female and she can become pregnant potentially without if there aren't defects obstructing that. And
Yeah, I saw that
male,
clip from Matt Walsh's
yeah.
interview. I thought that was pretty disingenuous, considering he went to. I don't know if you know about the tribe he went to, but I mean, incredibly misogynistic, incredibly patriarchal, incredibly not the sorts of virtues that we want to uphold as Westerners. So I thought it was curious that he went to them for his advice. Most tribal people, right? Let's be honest. Like most third world communities have an understanding of like an intersex sort of third gender category, right? Like most other cultures besides Western culture, as we call it, which is really just European culture, they have concepts of a third gender, right? They understand that. I think in a lot of contexts, it's like a spiritual entity, right? Like the hermaphrodite in like Greek mythology and
Yeah.
going back a long time. I mean, this is not. I always feel like the whole gender construct really is just a product of Western Christian thinking, so much as it is biological. I mean, if you really want to talk about the biology of the situation, well, first of all, gay people are natural, right? We see gay couples and all sorts of other animals and all. It is extremely natural.
Yeah, but
in
you
that
have to
sense.
remember that the Christian worldview involves a perfect paradise and then disobedience of our first parents, and that is a fall from grace, and there are many
It could
supernatural gifts
be.
that
The question is,
were.
how do you determine, right?
So
You're
what's
saying
natural today? What's natural today is I have a natural inclination to be lazy and selfish and to steal and all these sorts of things, right? So that's natural. That is natural, and we can see examples of it everywhere, even in
well,
children.
but that's not a good thing, right? So yeah, what's natural isn't always what's good.
Yep.
But you're saying that homosexuality is bad because it's not natural. So I mean, it seems confusing.
Homosexual acts are just as
You said it
natural
goes against. You
as
said it goes against their nature, right?
yeah, the inclination to sodomy is just as natural as the inclination to theft. It's just as natural. We can see it just as much. It's rampant. It's rampant in this fallen
But
world. Both are
but again,
rampant.
like the reason you said it's wrong when I asked you why else besides God said so, the answer you gave me was, well, it goes against their nature.
Yeah.
But now you're saying it is natural.
No, I'm saying that in this fallen world, according to your definition of natural, which is a perverted definition, which says that if it's happening, therefore it's natural. So all the evil things, all the evil acts that are happening are natural according to that secondary definition that you gave. You've strayed from my definition, which is
Okay.
what is the purpose? What is the purpose of man? What is the purpose of woman? And you've strayed from that, and you're
So I
using
mean, yeah,
a
let's
different
use
definition.
the word purpose then, because
Yeah.
you now still have to distinguish between the intended purpose and how it actually is, right? And I can do that in all of these other cases, like for rape or murder or theft, right? All these other cases where we say, yeah, that's natural, but like that's not the intended, right? Or that's not the preferable outcome or situation.
It's not ideal, and it's harming people.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's not ideal. It's harming people. We can point to all of these negative effects that it has.
Yeah.
You can't do the same thing with
Sure you
homosexuality.
can. Sure you can. Sure you
Okay,
can.
go on.
Well, I feel uncomfortable, rubbing your face in it, but it's just like you can Google it. What do the bigots say? The dangers of homosexuality. You'll get a big list, right? So look at what
Yeah,
your
I mean,
enemies
you're
say.
being
Look at what your
curious to
enemies
go
say.
through.
Huh?
No, let's go through those.
It's distasteful to me, but if you want to, you can lead the charge.
Well, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but if we're gonna have a serious conversation about your homophobia,
I would
right?
just say, I would just talk about the family and about intimacy, sexuality. It's more than obvious that a man cannot impregnate a man or a goat or
Agreed.
a pencil sharpener or
And
anything else.
why again? So, what is the relationship between being able to conceive of child and whether this action is moral or not?
You can hammer a screw into the block of wood, but it's better to use the
It's not
screwdriver.
immoral.
Use the screwdriver. It's better. It's more natural. It's more
Would you
natural.
lock
Just
someone
use the
up for
screwdriver.
using the nail?
Huh?
Would you condemn someone for using the nail in in a moral sense?
For using a hammer to hammer in a screw?
No, for using, or yeah, whatever,
That's
whatever the
my
wrong
analogy.
tool.
Yeah, using the wrong tool. I would just give advice. If you want my advice, use the screwdriver to put the screw into the board. Don't use the hammer because it's
But
perverted. It's perverted to use the hammer to hammer the screw into the board. It seems to work. It seems to work, but it's perverted and it may lead to other deranged and perverted activities. So just be
I
careful.
think your analogy is falling apart, David.
There's
I
a
mean,
reason. There's a reason.
if you think using a nail to hammer a hammer in or whatever your analogy is. I mean, I don't see how that's perverted. I mean, it doesn't, when I think of like molesting children or like,
Okay, have you ever
hurting
seen
people alive,
someone,
like that's,
have you seen anyone drive stick for the first time and you're like, that
I
is
mean,
unsettling. It's unsettling, and it's just not how you change gears in a stick shift car. And you have to be trained how to do it, because if you've been driving automatic your whole life, you're just gonna grind the gears. So that
okay,
that
that
grinds
whole,
on my gears, and it grinds on my gears when my wife
that's a different
uses,
analogy.
huh?
That's a different analogy, though, right? In
Yeah,
that
but
situation, I would say there is a risk to using the wrong gears, right? There's not only the risk of crashing and injuring yourself or,
yeah,
just damaging your car and not
yeah,
being able to go to work,
yeah,
but you're putting other lives at risk on the road,
yeah,
right? Like there's a
yeah,
lot of negative
yeah,
factors that go into that.
yeah.
So can you elaborate a bit on those issues? Like, how is it that the misapplication of sex in terms of homophobia, like what are the specific outcomes that are negative in your mind?
Well, it's all connected to everything that will attack and destroy the fabric of society, which is supposed to
You
be
got to
the
get more
family, which
specific
is
than
supposed
that.
to be the
No,
family.
no,
So we have pornography, we have adultery, we have gay sex, we have all kinds of stuff that takes away from the integrity of the family, which is the basis of society, which is the fabric of society, and
going
it's
real
destructive.
vague
It's
on me
destructive.
here.
It's
Can,
destructive to society because it's
can you make
destructive
it a
to the
little bit
family.
more specific? Can you get a little bit more concrete for me?
Sure,
Like
like,
let's talk about homosexuality and let's
yeah, well, I mean, it's
narrow
just
down on
it's
how
there's
it's
damage
detrimental.
there's damage being done to the individuals that are involved, and if they, God forbid, if they adopt a child, that innocent child is going to be corrupted and confused, and it's not
How?
that child is not going to have what is
Are
natural.
they going to be
What
gay?
is natural in a family is to have your biological mother and your biological father, and that's going to do damage not having access to that. It's just not natural, and it's just not good. It's not
Again,
good.
I get that you think that that's unnatural,
Yeah.
but considering we have different definitions of natural, you're going to have to give me something else. You haven't provided me any reasons, as far as I can tell, to accept your understanding of what is and isn't, um, you know, pervasive or corruptive. Like I'm hearing you say, oh, it's not natural, like, oh, it's detrimental to like family values and stuff, and I'm not seeing any of that, and I
Okay.
want to see where you're coming
let's
from.
let's just let's just keep it really simple in a clear-cut example of a child who has two possible futures. One possible future is a loving mother and father who are his biological parents. The other scenario, the other possible scenario, is an equally loving same-sex couple. Which one do you think is objectively, absolutely, eternally, and immutably better?
Well, I don't know which one's gonna be eternal. I don't think parenting lasts forever, but
I'm
but I mean,
talking
yeah,
about I'm talking
I
about
would
the
agree
moral
with.
judgment. When you make a moral judgment,
Yeah,
this situation is
no
better than that
different.
one. It's not a subjective opinion. It's not relative. It's not
I, I might
temporary.
even I might even say the gay couple's better simply for the fact that they're more likely to be liberal and
No, but
instill
no, but
enlightened values.
we're setting up a situation where everything else is exactly identical. The only thing that's different is over here we have biological parents. Over here we have a same-sex couple. That's the only
Yeah,
difference.
so what would be the difference then?
Well, is there any benefit to having a child raised by its biological mother and father? Yes or no? If you don't believe that, then you're not going to understand anything about my worldview at all
I
when it comes to sexual
as
morality.
right, if we have two all else being
Yeah,
equal
yeah.
situations, then obviously I don't see the difference,
Okay.
right? And that's the problem. I
So
need you.
there's no value to being a biological parent whatsoever in your worldview. There's no value to that whatsoever. The fact of being a biological parent to a child is nothing for you. It's absolutely nothing. It adds nothing. You can
Well, you did
literally
say all
raise
else
the
being
child.
equal.
Right, right. But
I
you can,
could come up with hypotheticals.
no, everything else is equal. But is the fact of being the biological parent, does that add value to that child? Yes or no? Everyone, I think,
No.
agrees that there is value in having a connection with your family, with your roots, with your genetics, with your culture, with everything,
I
where
could
you
address.
come from. People are very disturbed. I have a sister who's adopted. I can tell you it is a significant factor. Who are my real parents? I always wondered, who are my parents? What were they like? I did some research. I found out, oh, my mother was, she lived down here and she did this and that, and she had this problem and that problem, whatever. People want to know. They want to be connected to their biological parents. They want to be connected to their family. They want to be connected to their roots. They want to be connected to their heritage. And to deny that is ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
That's not what I said, right?
Okay,
I
so
mean,
all things being equal, do you see the value now of the biological parents?
okay, you can't be like all else being equal
Sure.
and then throw in a bunch of other situations
Like
that would
what?
make it equal.
Like what?
Well, I mean, so everything you mentioned, right, is like a product of the fact that like that's how our society is structured, right? Like the fact that we have such a close connection to our kin is largely due to the fact that if you're not connected to your kin, historically speaking, you're dead, right? Like that, there's a deep instinctual connection between biological parent and kids, right? And I'm not going to deny that. But there's a big difference between that, you know, instinctual or emotional or what have you need for understanding your origins or your connection to your kin, right? And having your biological parents as your parental figures, right? Like there's a lot of adopted kids to gay parents who do know their biological parents, right? And it turns out that their biological parents are pieces of shit who didn't want them, and right? And so it's like,
that's why I said all things being equal, all else being equal, all else being equal, right? So we can't use the cheap example. You can't use the cheap example of the crappy biological parents and the wonderful same-sex couple, because that's just not fair. I'm saying all else being equal because I'm trying to isolate the fact of biological parenthood, that there's something there, undeniably. We all know it. There's something there of value, and you're robbing the kids of that.
right, and it's that value that as soon as you say all else being equal,
Yep.
you should be eliminating that value as well,
Okay,
right?
so basically what you're saying is it's just a construct. It's a construct. All the things that I point to that I think have value, you say are a construct of society, and if we change society, we can look back on that as backwards and old-fashioned. And the future is, it takes a village to raise a child, and you can raise any healthy liberal pair or group, because there's nothing to prevent polyamory and polygamy. There's nothing to prevent that from your point of view. There's absolutely no reason to cling to this old-fashioned idea of a couple being the parents. Why not have a throuple? And we're seeing this in the mainstream media now. We're seeing this in the mainstream media, in the entertainment. We're starting to see polygamy creep in.
Again, polygamy I would argue, is natural, right? It's the Christian concept of marriage that's unnatural.
Yeah, you have to say that. You have to say that. You have to say that.
But that's the reality of history, right? Like before we were even civilized, right? Back when we were monkeys,
I don't believe it.
It wasn't polyamorous. It was more like the alpha male of the tribe gets all the women, right? Like, I mean, you're painting a very I don't want to say whitewashed, but definitely like a revised history of how humans have made it.
Yeah, I'm a young Earth creationist. Don't forget, I'm a young Earth creationist, right? A young Earth creationist. So bear that in mind. Bear that in mind.
We're operating from different understandings of history, but I don't think our disagreement about what's natural is really the key contention here, right? Because when you say all else being equal, but biological parents have all of these intrinsic values to them. I'm looking at everything you're saying, and I'm pointing out how those are exactly the things that would make it not equal.
Yeah,
Right. And if we have,
you can look at examples of experiments that were done that try to live out and make a reality out of your fantasy, and it is a fantasy. It's a demonic fantasy that biological parenthood is only a social construct, and all the value that's
who is
injected
socially
into that.
constructed.
Yeah, it's a complete fantasy. I'm telling you right now, it's an ontological, metaphysical reality that the family is one woman, one man, not closely related, committed in a lifelong relationship, self-giving love, open to
Yeah,
procreation.
let's be clear here.
That's the reality, and your fantasy about it doesn't matter who raises the children. They've tried that. They've tried that in hippie communes. They've tried it in perverted Christian cults. They've tried it everywhere. It ends in disaster. It ends in mental illness. It ends in addiction and all kinds of disaster. Now, you can explain that away any way you want, but I explain it by saying they were perverted, they went against nature, and they were punished by karma and by the justice of God.
Okay, and I mean, at that point, you would have to assess which explanation is superior, I'd say, whereas you're just kind of going off your...
I would say good luck with that experiment. If you want to try it, good luck with that, but don't invite me into that group, because that's going to be a disaster.
To the earlier point, like plenty of cultures already have been and do try it. And
Can you point to
I would,
one successful one? Can you point to one successful?
yeah, I would argue there's plenty of societies that are more successful than the model we have.
Show me.
One great example would be like Sweden, right? The way that they raise their family, well, first of all, they have a stronger traditional family system, right? Which I'm in favor of, not because of its biological structure, but because of its interpersonal structure, right? But they also have a number of other societal programs going on that aid in exactly what you said, a village raising the children, right? The fact that they send their kids to walk to school with the other kids, the fact that they have these group projects that kids engage in with the community that are, separate projects for them, right? The way that they organize their playgrounds and schools and everything, right? They have a far more interconnected community, I would say.
Okay, I'm reading right now the Swedish culture, the family. The nuclear family, that means biological mother, biological father, and the children, is the most common household unit. While the two-parent household with children is still typical, there is a high rate of single-parent households, blah, 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 blah. So there's nothing radically different about this.
Exactly. But do you see how I'm distinguishing the biological setup that you think is what's important here from the actually important things, which are the values that setup provides, right?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of these structures and rules and like the different
But it's not possible to get the same values from a same-sex couple, and I'm saying, well, not only is that not evidentially supported, but I would argue as society becomes more communal, that it'll become more balanced. The value that a biological kin provides will be more or less what the community provides, right? And again, we're not going to be able to change intrinsic biological instincts. And that's how you were somewhat equivocating between sex and gender, by the way. Gender is a social construct. Sex is biological.
Yeah.
And it's not it's bimodal. It's not one or the other.
Not to interrupt, but Maria's in the chat. Hello, Maria. Maria says, how long has the Swedish model been in place? So I'll let you answer that briefly.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Probably a long time, considering how many wars they're able to avoid.
But yeah, we're not going to make a lot of headway really with this line of questioning and whatever.
Why they have a better social cohesion is because they have less societal struggles, right? They're wealthier, they're more homogenous. There's a number of different reasons why they would handle child rearing better than here in the States.
Yeah, the socialization of the child is very important, and friendships and other families and community, all these sorts of things. No one's denying that. What I am denying is that we can throw away the biological parents without paying a price for that, a very, very high price for the individuals involved and for the society. That's what I'm saying.
Sweden has same-sex parent. Like, no one's arguing to throw away or like destroy the family. It's just allowing same-sex couples to have families too is only beneficial in all of the aspects that you're talking about, right? And the same-sex couples that live in Sweden, I'm sure, are a lot happier there than they would be here because of the stigma, because of the demonization, because of the rampant homophobia.
Yeah, we can agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree. I love you. I respect you. I disagree with you, and hopefully you feel the same way.
Just to end this part
Segment.
of the convo.
Yeah.
Until you provide me with reasons to see homosexuality as a bad thing, I'm still going to see you as homophobic.
Go for it.
All right.
I've been called worse. I've been called worse. But when you see a real homophobe and you put them next to me, you'll be able to spot the difference. You can spot the difference. You can spot the difference. Don't pretend you can't. You can spot the difference. Don't pretend you can't.
I don't distinguish who's real or not, but like, yeah, you're not calling for the death penalty or anything like some Christians here in this country do.
Yeah, I'm pro-choice with everything. I'm even pro-choice with abortion. Like, choose, but choose wisely. For God's sake, choose wisely. That's it.
I thought you were pro-life.
I am pro-life. That's why I want you to choose life. I want you to choose life. But I do want you to choose. I do want you to choose. I do. I don't want you to be forced. I don't want you to be I do not want you to be forced. I want you to choose. But I want you to choose life. Choose life. And that's with everything. Everything.
I think we're 100% on the same page there, right? Like, I don't see abortion. I mean, it's a medical procedure, so like in that sense, it's good. But like, no, people, ideally, no one would be having abortions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old slogan was rare and safe, or whatever it was,
Yeah. Well, that's good. We're both against forced birth, and I like that.
So am I a fascist still?
Not in that aspect. I have to analyze. So like, there's 14 commonalities of fascism, right?
Okay.
And so I don't know how many you'd have to score on to like be considered a fascist.
You're pretty fast and loose with calling me a fascist for someone who doesn't know the 14 points. Come on, man. You're pretty fast and loose with the insults.
I don't want to be black and white with it. I do want to call it out where I see it, right? So I don't see it as like either.
Yeah, but you called it out. You called it out before you knew the nuance to my position.
Well,
you see how hasty you were. You see how rash you were in your judgment. Do you see that now?
With regards to your homophobia, that you still seem to be.
I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice. You want to adopt? You want to adopt a baby as a same-sex couple? That's your choice. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice.
But it's the moral opinion that you have about it, right? It's not outright fascist, but it falls in line with fascistic tendencies, right? Like, there's a reason why the Nazis were anti-gay. There's a reason why they banned abortion, right? Like, all of your reasoning might be different, but all the outcomes still land you on the same side. Do you see?
Yeah, but I'm not out there. I wasn't voting to overturn Roe v. Wade. I wasn't even excited when they overturned Roe v. Wade. It's just like, whatever. That's the law. That's the law.
Fascism isn't the radicals who are extreme. The problem is the moderate, right? Like, the moderate Nazi was the real problem because they just kind of let it happen, and it wasn't democratic. It was, the prime chancellor elected Hitler, right? So it was kind of the same shady business we had with what Trump was trying to do. But I mean,
I'm looking out for the kids. I'm looking out for the kids, the innocent, the most vulnerable, and you're really letting loose, fast and loose with the accusations I'm a Nazi and I'm a fascist and this sort of thing. You're free to do that. You're free to do that. I just hope you know that it doesn't seem very moderate. It doesn't seem very liberal and moderate.
By those lights, you are an Enlightenment thinker, right? By some other means, you are a fascist, right? It's not black and white. It's not you're one or the other. It's you may or may not represent tendencies which fall along the spectrum.
The implication, if we read between the lines of your virtue signaling, that what we read between the lines is that you, Lina, you are not in any way, shape, or form a fascist or a Nazi. You are not. You're above that. You're above that.
I disagree. No, I'm an American, all right? Like, at the very least, I'm complicit in a global hegemonic power which has a number of highly authoritarian tendencies, right? Like the Supreme Court alone. So, like, yeah, no, I definitely have my own moral charges against me that I accept and I am trying to fight against, right? Like, I think that my political activism is a part of that. But like, no, like, I consider myself a vegan. I still eat meat sometimes because I'm poor and I have to get whatever food I can. And it just so happens that all the vegan options at places are more expensive. And usually the cheapest thing is the chicken dish. So I don't see it as hypocritical of me to point out the farming industry and say, you know, this is genocide. You know, the food industry is corrupt and needs to be reformed.
Yeah.
And yet still recognize that, like, my individual personal actions don't really affect that, right? Like, whether I eat meat or not isn't going to change the farming industry. What's going to change the farming industry is maybe how politically active I am and whether I can help create that change, you know?
Well, if there's no demand, they won't be making money off it and they won't be interested. So you are contributing to the demand. I got a question from Maria. She says, what is Lina's opinion on surrogacy is exploiting low-income women as biological resources? What's your opinion on that? Did you understand the question?
Right. Basically getting paid to give birth to someone else's kid, or even just selling your ovaries or your sperm, right? Like, I see all of this as capitalist exploitation. Yeah, capitalism ruins everything.
Poor women. Maria says, no, poor women. Okay.
Well, I'm guessing the reason they would do that, right? If they're poor, they need the money. So, like, yeah, that is exactly the type of capitalist exploitation.
It's exploitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if they were receiving their basic human rights, right to free food, healthcare, housing, right, all the things that
is that a human right to have free food?
Active should give you, but don't. Right? If they had all of those things, then they wouldn't need to go sell their bodies in such a way. And again, I see that as the same way with all of work, right? Whether it's being a surrogate parent, or whether it's being a sex worker, or whether it's being, a worker at a factory.
Would you sell your body on the street if you could make a lot of money doing that?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you personally be willing to sell your body to ugly old men for money if it were profitable and easy? Just asking again, for a friend.
It depends on how dire my situation is,
no,
right?
Right now, like, you're looking for work. Is that an option? Is it an option?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm fortunate enough to not have to look for such work. I can make money other ways.
Okay. But if you
I'm very privileged in a lot of ways.
Okay. I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
do you see it as an undignified way to make money and exploitation?
No, sex work is real work.
So
I see it work as demeaning and
you
dehumanizing.
do
So
see it, as dehumanizing and exploitative.
I I I don't see it as shameful or dehumanizing on the part of the worker. No, right? The worker is the one who's the victim. They're the one being coerced into having to sell themselves, right? The owners, um, that's not the same case.
The Johns and the pimps.
Yeah, so I mean, it is dehumanizing. Um, the exploitation of capitalism is inherently degrading and dehumanizing, but victims are going to do what they have to do, and I will never condemn someone for doing what they see as best for them in the circumstances that they're in.
Yeah.
Like we're all trying to survive. I might even say it's a fallen world. So
Maria asks, do you see that surrogacy situation as human trafficking? Is that stretching it too far for you?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the fine line with consent, right? Like, obviously, if they're not consenting to it, then that is just straight up, rape and torture and all the rest of it. Is capitalist exploitation enslavement in the same way? No, right? It's not physical bondage, but it is a sort of bondage. And so, yeah, I think we can differentiate the severity levels.
St. Paul said, if someone doesn't work, neither should they eat. So that seems to contradict what you said about free food being a human right.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that is a pragmatic take, right? If we're on a desert island, and it's work or survive, or work to survive, rather, right? I think that if you're being lazy and then you don't get the same access, right? I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But we live in the most decadent, the richest country in the world. We could have no homeless people and not even notice the money coming out of the federal budget, right? Like, this is the reason why there's homelessness and poverty under capitalism is because capitalism benefits from homelessness and poverty, right? It's a unique situation that capitalism actually perpetuates because the owner class wants a bottom line, right? They want a low, desperate working class, the very bottom rung, to be able to pull from, right? And having an unemployment, having some percentage that's unemployed keeps them desperate. It keeps them low. It keeps wages down, right? There's a number of reasons why having it the way we have it is beneficial to the owner class, right? But I mean, this is all like separate from human rights. Like, even if we looked on the island example,
yeah,
right? Everyone still has a right to free food, free healthcare, free education, yada yada. They're just not going to get it because they're on a desert island, right? And so in that situation, we would have to triage and make accommodations, right? And if you're not helping to work, then we might not be able to accommodate you.
The libertarians say that when you take something that's not a human right and you declare it as a human right, then the hospital worker becomes a slave and it gets exploited, and the person that does all these other services for you, prepares your food, they're now enslaved and they're being exploited by you because they have no choice but to serve you these things that are not human rights, but which have been declared as human rights.
Well, now let's be clear, right? Like, that is the case right now, right? Like, the reason why fast food workers have the job that they do is because if they didn't, they would be homeless and they would starve, right? If that weren't the case, if we provided everyone with free food, free education, free healthcare, yada yada, one, that would free up a lot of job mobility. People would be able to actually work the jobs they want to work. But two,
are you joking? Who would work if they had free food and free shelter? Give me a break.
this crazy myth of like, oh, we have to threaten people with death, otherwise they won't want to do anything. Like this is probably the oldest and most pernicious myth of capitalism, and it's completely false. And I think it's actually exactly backwards. I think that once you take care of the bottom half of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? If you think of your pyramid where you take care of shelter and healthcare and all of these survival needs, that frees people up to actually like contribute to society, right? Like think of all the homeless people that could have jobs right now and could be working if only we gave them a place to sleep and some food to eat.
Yeah, but
Right? Like,
there are many dirty jobs connected with providing people with these basic human rights needs. And who's going to do those? Who's going to do those dirty jobs? Who's going to clean out the sewer when it gets clogged up? Who's going to do that?
the people that
If you
are
got everything taken care of, who's going to say, "Hey, I could just stay at home in my air-conditioned luxury suite with the free food and everything else and watch TV, or I can go unclog the city sewer"? Who's going to make that decision? Nobody, right?
I completely disagree. Not only is sitting at home doing nothing incredibly unsatisfying. I mean, that is the sign of mental mental health problems, not a sign of a healthy living, right? But to your point of like doing these jobs that are required of society, these are exactly the roles that we should be heroizing, right? That we should be uplifting, that we should be glorifying, right? The fact that our garbage men are paid, I mean, they're actually paid pretty well compared to other jobs, right? But like the fact that our frontline workers are treated with such indignity and disrespect, yeah, it just boggles my mind that people think like, oh, we have to hold people under like the whip and keep them desperate and coerced into working. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to like contribute to society. Like, no, I could see a society where being a plumber, right, being someone who provides great value to the community is like something that people would do for free. People would be doctors for free, right? Just for the chance to like be respected in the community and yeah. But I mean, but people can't do that because they can't survive unless they go to work, right? And so people end up not doing what they want, doing what they have to do in these dead end jobs that don't provide any value, right? Most of American economy is really not like doing anything, right? Like the whole gig economy, the whole service industry, we could get rid of all of it, right? We don't need to have all these different restaurants. We could just have the food shipped to you directly, right? You could get your drone shipment of groceries every month by the government for free, and do away with all of these useless 9-to-5 jobs and redirect all of that work into something useful.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So, I can guarantee you.
Sorry, I have to correct you on this because it is, again, these are the pernicious lies that are told by capitalism that completely misunderstand what socialism means, right? Socialism is not that you'll own nothing and you'll like it. That's late stage capitalism, right? Where the owner class, where the 1% who's monopolized everything and accumulated all the power, because that's what happens when winner takes all, they will own everything and you will subscribe everything out, right? You'll live on the company town and you'll have, you'll own nothing. Whereas in a socialist system, the workers own the means of production, right? And we've never had this, by the way. This is a pretty radical thing to consider, that the workplace should be as democratized as the government, right? The fact that the boss has authoritarian control over what happens in the workplace is like having a dictatorship in government. I mean, they're different kinds of power, right? One is government power, one is corporate power, but the outcome is the same. The worker class owns nothing. So it's radically different to put the means of production into the hands of the workers, to democratize the workplace, to allow the workers to actually receive what they make and to own what they make, to own what they produce. Like that is a deeply libertarian value, and it's really only upheld under socialism. The current system we have now, you do not own the product of your labor. Your boss does, right? And their boss does. And then it goes up the chain to where you get nothing and CEOs get another couple hundred million onto their bonus.
Maria's suggesting you look into distributism. Have you heard about it? Are you aware? You can look into it. I don't know what it is. Distributism. It sounds like things are getting distributed or redistributed.
It might be a good thing. Might be bad. I don't know. We'll see.
I can just promise you. I can promise you, if for whatever reason, free food and shelter and all these sorts of things get declared a human right and it gets implemented, and I'm getting food.
Well, they are human right.
No, but if it happens, I'll be very happy. You can call me mentally ill all you want. That's fine. I'll be at home with my wife doing my little hobbies and reading my books and doing whatever. And I will not be volunteering to go clean out the sewer. I will not be volunteering to do any of the dirty jobs that are necessary to make society run, including providing all of these free goods and services. I will not be volunteering for that. I will be enjoying the good life at home. That's me being honest. I'm being honest with you.
David, what if, as a plumber, instead of your boss making most of the money from your work, what if you made 100% of the work that you put into your plumbing, right? What if you owned the pipelines as a worker, right? You had a collective ownership of the actual things you're working on, right? One, you would make more money, right? Two, you would have more say over how the job is done, right? Everything about making plumbing, for instance, socialist, just seems like it would make the job better. Well, it would make the job more appealing.
The one key word that makes me cringe is collective. You will own as part of a collective. Well, it's just like that desert island thing. It's like,
You're not the only plumber.
Yeah, but we're on the desert island and there are only a limited number of coconuts, and it's like, okay, I'm the coconut harvester, and it's like there's always going to be competition, there's always going to be one-upmanship, there's always going to be sabotage, there's always going to be jealousy, rivalry, there's always going to be, I don't see it as a rosy scenario, like being part of this workers collective and all this sort of thing, and you've got a say, and my little voice against all the other plumbers. It's like, what? It's the same stuff, man. It's the same morons that you have to deal with day to day. It's the same morons. Are you suddenly going to make everyone enlightened and everyone kind and generous and selfless? Because that's what's required for me to buy into some utopian dream. Human nature. We're selfish.
I get that. But right now, the plumbers do not make the money from their work, right? Like, there is a 1% owner class in the plumbing industry, as in every other industry, right? The CEO who doesn't do any plumbing at all is making millions, right? Do you think that that's fair? Do you think that someone who does absolutely no work should make money from other people's labor?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that rich people work hard too in their own way. I don't know. What do I know? But what are they doing? What are they doing? Laying around counting their money? Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're worried. I'm pretty sure they're worried sick about all the things they're responsible for, and they're trying to manage it, right? I mean, that's why I'm not climbing the ladder to be part of their ranks, because it's the last thing I would want is to be responsible for all these livelihoods and to deal with all the problems and to be invested and to have all of the risk and all that sort of thing. It's like, no, thank you. I'd rather be at the bottom. I'd rather be a slave, because I don't want the nightmare. I'd rather sleep at night, work hard during the day, sleep at night, instead of worrying about all these families I've got to feed and all the machinery that's getting obsolete and breaking down and rusting and everything else.
And I want that too, right? But my point is that the manager who runs the facility is not the CEO. right? Every stage that's important and relevant to the actual work that's being done is not where the money's going, right? In most of our industries, the money is going to people who haven't even been on the sales floor, or like haven't even been in the factory. They don't, they don't follow what's going on. Most rich people, what they do is they figure out schemes to get richer, to make loopholes in government policy. No, I'm not even kidding. Like that's really mostly what the owner class that I'm talking about engage in. They live on their yachts and they waste a bunch of gas flying around and live up their luxurious lives, and then they enforce policy, and they spend with their money, right? They donate to political campaigns towards making sure that the government can't take their money. So I mean, all of the problems that you're pointing to, I'm like, yeah, this is theft, this is wrong, right? This is like the evil greed of human nature. And making it so that the workers own what they produce is making things more fair.
Yeah, I don't know. What I think about when I think about the elite and those who are high up in with power and money and that sort of thing, I just pity their souls because, this life is very fleeting and it passes by so quickly, and then they're going to meet their maker. And this is, of course, from my Christian perspective, they're going to end up either in heaven or hell, and it's just harder for the rich man to enter. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So that's what I think. I think immediately of my sympathy for these poor people who are wealthy and powerful, because it's more challenging for them to get to heaven. That's what I think.
Let's save them. Let's save them from their wretched ways by taking their money away and
redistribute
to the people who deserve it. Yeah, let's flatten these hierarchies.
It's a big project. You're a young person, so you can pour all your energy into that and your optimism and I would say naive fantasy. But I encourage you to fight for justice and goodness and all this sort of thing. So I applaud you for that. I'm going to let you go. I am going to let you go now because I want to spend time with my wife. No offense to you.
Well, thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to get up. It's unusual. We're going to get up early tomorrow and go to the country. So that's why I want to sort of spend some time with her and get to bed early. But real pleasure, as always, talking to you. And
safe travel.
Thank you very much. We'll talk soon, and God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.